Good evening, Dolphins fans. Welcome to another episode here of On the FinSide with Kat and Paul. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, all of our social media outlets, as well as the finfanatic.com website and the Fansided Network. I'm Brian Cat, NFL on Twitter. Paul is fanatic_pick. It is Buffalo Bills week, and we are going across enemy lines and talking to the enemy here. Brad Eichkorn, who has been generous enough to join us on the show over the last couple of years, is here. Brad, how you doing tonight?
Doing fantastic. Really looking forward to a Week 3 matchup here in the NFL.
I bet you are, because the Bills are number one in power rankings across the NFL. I mean,
really? I had no idea. Wow. Hold it. Look at that.
What more can you say? I mean, but there's a reason for it. I mean, over the last 13 games going back to last year, you're talking about a Bills team that has put up 40 or more points in 5 of the 13 games. And they've only had under 27 points in one of the games, and that was against the Patriots last year. And they came back to beat the Patriots 47-17 in the playoffs. So needless to say, is it fair to say that the Dolphins have to score 35 to 40 points in this contest to even have a shot?
Yeah, I would say that, or force some turnovers if they want to keep pace in this one. This is a high octane offense, if you will, here. Josh Allen is who we all hoped he would be. And I hate to say it, but I was one of many Bills fans who didn't love the idea of drafting Josh Allen just based on, some of the red flags coming out of college, the accuracy, the decision-making, and he proved all of us wrong. And I had no problem just eating a big, heavy plate of crow, especially when they bring in guys like Stephon Diggs, when we see guys develop here like Gabe Davis, when we get free agent wide receivers in the slot, like Jamison Crowder, when we see guys like Isaiah McKenzie step up, who Denver didn't want. This team was designed and built to put on a lot of points, and that's exactly what they're doing, whether it be on the air through Josh's legs or maybe occasionally on the ground.
I thought Allen was such a hit-or-miss prospect coming out of Wyoming. I mean, just you saw the arm talent, completed 55% of his passes in his final year, but you saw the skills, and he's the best player in the NFL, period. I said that in the offseason. And I'm not doing that to suck up to the Bills, but it's just reality because of how they've played here over the last 13 games. But first, before we get into the matchups here, where do we find you here, Brad, on social media?
Yes, of course. You can follow me at Bills Bruiser. You can follow us at Draft House D or sorry, here. Let me pull up our handle here, of course. We're at DHS Buffalo, DraftHouseSports.com, and Facebook.com/Buffalo Bills Draft House.
Make sure to find them on there. And a main question that Dolphins fans have is when you look at what Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle did last week, the only tandem in NFL history against the Ravens to have 10-plus catches, 150-plus yards, and 2 touchdowns in the same game in that incredible comeback win against the Ravens. The Bills secondary, Tre'Davious White, out for the year from the beginning. Dane Jackson, obviously, with that really dramatic injury last week. Micah Hyde also gets a neck injury, and Jordan Poyer has been out of practice the last 2 weeks. What do you think the Bills' strategy is going to be at defensive back for matching up against the Dolphins receivers?
One thing that our GM, Brandon Beane, has done is made this a complete roster where we can really lean on the next man up. And I've heard a lot of folks around Buffalo, some of the insiders and the reporters have said that this coaching staff is actually very interested and intrigued to see how guys like Jaquan Johnson go ahead and step up should they get called on. Fortunately, Jordan Poyer actually has been healthy. He may have had a stinger down the stretch, but, he finished that game strong. He did have a pick, back-to-back weeks with picks for Poyer. He was out of practice today. We're not sure why. He hadn't really popped up on the injury report before. It could have been a veteran rest day. But with Dane Jackson, it was scary. You could hear a pin drop in that stadium on Monday night. basically our heart sunk into our stomach for that one. And lo and behold, he's back at practice wearing a red do not contact jersey. That's unbelievable to see. The big question and the big concern for a lot of us Bills fans is, will Micah Hyde play in this one? Probably one of the most underrated and possibly one of the best safety tandems in the NFL, in Poyer, who I already spoke about, but then, of course, Micah Hyde, who we brought over in free agency at the same time from Green Bay, bringing in Poyer from the Browns. So it would be a blow not to have Hyde, but I think they're ready to plug in a guy like Jaquan Johnson, that it's the next man up mentality of this team, that I don't foresee them having any major issues going into this game. If they can't get a completely healthy secondary, they're really going to lean on that pass rush. And let's face it, Pro Football Focus or Next Gen Stats has the Bills as the top pass rush in the NFL. They've only blitzed 3 times. That's their 2 weeks. They didn't blitz at all in week 1. So if they can lean on their front 4, their base nickel defense, let's not forget Teron Johnson, a big factor in that backfield here, a nickel corner, a slot corner in this one. I think if they can allow the Dolphins to go ahead and play in front and not give up that, over the top route here, I think that's going to benefit the defense, and that's how they'll go ahead and try to answer a very potent aerial attack from the Dolphins, at least through 2 weeks.
Yeah, and Matt Milano, obviously an amazing game against the Titans, and has been one of the most underrated players in the league the last couple of years. And what I've noticed from the Bills defense really over the last, 3 or 4 years now, Edmonds, Milano on the field every play. Jordan Poyer, if he plays, that's going to be huge for them. And it seems like from that point out, things tend to take care of themselves on the Bills defense, because you look at last year, they're number 1 in yards. They're number 1 in quarterback rating allowed. I mean, just so many different things that they have. Number 1 in points allowed. I mean, that's crazy for such a team that's good on offense. I mean, great on offense as well. But as far as pass rush, that's the one I'm worried about for the Dolphins as well. It seems like they've got that 4-man rotation of Shaq Lawson coming back, as well as these defensive ends that have dropped in the draft, like Gregory Russo, AJ Epineza, and Carlos Basham. When you look at defensive end, what do you see as far as how those match up against the Dolphins offensive tackles?
It was kind of a question mark going to last year and maybe in the year or two, how Greg Russo was going to develop. He's a South Beach kid. He played for the U, a guy with a tremendous wingspan, a guy who even sat out his last season of college football and still came in a late first-round pick. Looks promising last year. He had a sack against Tennessee, and I think Russo is someone that you absolutely want to keep an eye on here. But let's not forget a guy they brought in back in the 2019 and or actually 2020 for that matter, in Epinesa, where AJ is a guy who can a lot of speed off the edge in this one. And then Von Miller, I mean, he's a guy that you have to chip. You might double team if you can, but that allows other guys to break free in this one. And that's probably what Dolphins fans would have to be concerned if they can contain on the edge. Can they allow to stop the defensive tackles down the middle? We were out without Ed Oliver last week. He's supposed to be hopefully back this week. He at least has been getting snaps, been playing in practice. Same thing for Tim Settle, who was a free agency pickup coming in from the what was the Washington football team. So they're going to have their hands full on the edge. And my question is, can the Miami Dolphins hold up on the offensive front against those defensive tackles? It's going to be a tough order, especially a guy, Ed Oliver, he's in a contract year. Our linebacker, Tremaine Edmonds, he's in a contract year. We have a lot of guys just playing, balls to the wall at this point here, trying to earn that check because – let's face it here, when a team is coming in as Super Bowl favorites, players are going to want to stick around. That's why we're able to get some team-friendly deals here. That's why we're able to re-sign guys like Isaiah McKenzie, on the offensive side, that this is where folks want to be. Von Miller could have easily gone back to Denver. He could have easily stayed in L.A. Instead, he chose to sign with Buffalo. So I'm not going to lie. the offensive line for the Dolphins, they're going to be put to the task because our defensive line is right now what we want it to be. We didn't see the pass rush really in 2020. We saw a glimpse of it in 2021, but really this is where we wanted it to be. This is what we wanted our pass rush to be, and we're only in week 3.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense because, you get Von Miller, who recently called himself the Super Bowl Whisperer, and makes a lot of sense. And A.J. Epineza, Gregory Russo, they were developmental type of guys, and you're starting to see that now. Boogie Basham the same way. I mean, Paul, our co-host here, who's not here tonight, that was his favorite player of the draft. It seems like they've taken those defensive ends that have dropped in the draft and have just sicked them to the quarterback this year, and then packed Von Miller on top of it with Tremaine Edmonds and Matt Milano. So, yeah, that front seven is concerning here for Dolphins fans. No doubt about it. The question is, are the Dolphins able to go over the top in this game against that injured secondary? And that's something that bears watching.
Yeah, and the thing with this is Leslie Frazier really has done a fantastic job that, I've heard a lot of commentators and say, why didn't this guy get a head coaching job? And I think it's very simple. 13 seconds. If they had won that Kansas City game, I'd have no doubt that Leslie Frazier would probably be a head coach somewhere. I think he would have gotten that Bears job, but I think that left a bad taste in some GMs and some executives in the NFL's mouth about how they couldn't close out that game. That I don't think we're going to see something like that this year. Now, I'm not comparing a week 3 matchup with the Dolphins to, an AFC divisional game, but I think Leslie Frazier is going to have this team poised and ready. They've had a lot of time to watch tape. They were watching tape. They're probably watching the game on last Sunday here. So I think that this coaching staff has had a lot of time to prepare. The secondary looks good. The offensive line or the defensive line and the linebacking core have been stout so far. This is a very complete defense, and a lot of credit goes to Leslie Frazier and, of course, our head coach, and Sean McDermott.
Who caught that pass against the Bills that game?
In which game?
The game that kept him out of the Super Bowl.
Well, Tyreek Hill definitely had an impact here, and of course,
that's
yes,
right.
He's with your Dolphins right now.
See, I can talk trash because the Bills are number 1 in power rankings. So this is not beating a dead horse. Bills are the best team in the league, period, and they have the best player in the league. Period. And I don't think it's even close. It really isn't. I mean, you could make a case that Patrick Mahomes is the second best player in the league and the Chiefs are the second best. I would argue it's a distant second. So last 7 games, the Dolphins have been smacked around. This is a big week right now. What is your prediction for this game?
See, I'm almost leaning towards this being a shootout, as you alluded to earlier, Brian. I think this could potentially be a high-scoring, just an all-out shootout brawl in this one here. But I could also see it being, one sided the other way. Let's say Buffalo somehow comes out flat. I don't expect this team to go undefeated this year. I don't expect any team in the NFL to do that. We nearly saw New England do it. As a Dolphins fan and as a Patriots fan, as a Bills fan, I'm sure you and I can agree. Glad that didn't happen then. I don't think it's going to happen this year. And I was talking with someone that, we wouldn't mind this team taking a loss here or there just to keep them humble, keep them grounded. Like Coach McDermott says, he wants his team humble and hungry. This is going to be, I think, a fantastic matchup. I'm curious how many markets go out and pick up this game. I think they absolutely should. Granted, being here in Buffalo, no concern about missing this game, but I think it's going to be a high-scoring slugfest. And, I'm not really sure who's going to pull on. The season is young, but I think all things considered, I think Buffalo has a lot of weapons in this one that they would probably get an edge in this one.
What's your score prediction?
I really hate doing that. I really hate that. We chopped off score predictions on our own podcast. I'll do it for you, Brian, because you asked me. I will give you a prediction here. I'm going to say Buffalo by 3. I'm going to say 38-35.
38-35. That's
Tyler Bass down the stretch.
Makes a lot of sense. And
no,
it's I mean, it's assumed that the Bills are going to score that many points. Brad Eichkorn, thank you for joining us here on the FinSide. Be sure to follow him on his podcast and all of his social media outlets as well. I'm Brian Cat NFL, Paul is Fanatic_pick. You can follow us on the FinSide, on the finfanatic.com website and the FanSided network. And if it's not on the right side and it's not on the right side, it is on the FinSide. Sola D, take us home.